Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all right now. This is the Angels in Politics broadcast. If you don't know, this is the White Collar Goon, the creative and artistic manifestation of Angels in Politics. And right now, I am in front of the lab. I'm in front of the lab right now. Not a scientific laboratory, but the library. All right, so that is a form of a lab. Digital library. No, it's not a digital library, just regular library here in Greenbrier, here in Virginia. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I'm about to do some work. I got my coffee. Did a little exercise this morning. Got out. Got a little active. You know how that is. Tomorrow morning I'm gonna get my yoga session and do that little vinyasa flow for an hour. So I'm keen. But yeah, I kind of wanted to see how you were like and utilize this channel, this platform to have conversation and of course to listen. All right. I mentioned before that listening is my currency. Listening is how I get paid. And that's how and when I listen, I receive information, and that information is programming, and the programming is ingrained into my like internal software, and I apply it or integrate it through my actions, and through my actions, they're manifested through the people who I come across and interface with. So that's the API, the application programming interface. So it's very much like a computer. Our brains are very much like computers, CPUs, hardware. Our body's the hardware. I want to make sure that you continue to develop yourself and upgrade. The same thing when you have your smartphone and you plug it in and it has to charge, or you have a laptop or a tablet or anything like this. It has to go through its updates, and for definitely the iPhones, they go through their various iOS upgrades and updates, and it can really change the whole, not only the interface of your phone, but it can change the processing power, the speed, the accuracy, all types of things with technology are improved whenever you start to work on the programming, the software, the interface, the application. So we have to think about ourselves in like humans in almost a technological form. So I say all of that to say, okay, Gabe. So what are we talking about today? Of course, it's relationships. Of course, this is my passion. Sexual politics is like what Angels in Politics is heavily about. So somebody says, well, what's politics? Politics is anytime that you engage or interface with another human being. That's just politics. It doesn't matter if you're on the road. It doesn't matter if you're at the job. It doesn't matter if you're at church. It doesn't matter if you're dating. It doesn't matter if you are at a literal like city hall meeting or something like that. I don't want you to think politics is just somebody saying I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm running for office. Like, no, you're dealing with politics at home. You're dealing with politics behind closed doors with your significant other. All right. So sexual politics speaks exactly to that. Just you engaging with the opposite sex, and not necessarily in a sexual or intimate and physical way, just you as a man being around a woman, or you as a boy being around a girl, or girls being around young men, and young ladies being around young men, and young gentlemen, and just having that vibe, just that energy, the unspoken, the unspoken nonverbal communication that's at play, because we know that communication is maybe 80 to 85% nonverbal, and then the rest is verbal. And somebody says, well, Gabe, that's not the same for you because you talk a lot. And I do talk a lot. But for the most part, for the average person, and even for myself, the majority of communication is body language, is nuances, it's the fluctuation, the tone of voice, the way people say things, hand movements, which is body language. These types of things speak more, instinctively, intuitively. You can understand or ascertain what an individual is meaning or wants, or how they're feeling. So interpretation of their of their of the content, of contextualizing what they really are trying to say. And some people articulate themselves differently. I mean, I know me, for instance, I talk a lot, so some people might be like, I really don't like too much of that. But then there's other people who might say, hey, like, we like it when you explain things like this because we can see some similarities with other people that we know, or you can kind of like bring clarity to people that we might know who aren't as extroverted or as talkative. But so I want to tell you all a story. I want to tell you all a story about like sexual politics because this is something that is near and dear to me. I mentioned before, and I'm doing a lot of these videos about. Oh, the coffee is so hot and so good. I like the Brazilian coffee. I like Colombian coffee as well. I like Ethiopian coffee too, but the darker the better for me. The darker the beer, the darker, the darker the beer, the darker the fruit, the darker the coffee, the better. So that's a side note. That has nothing to do with relationships, but or maybe it does. But so, I I have been mentioning before that you don't really know a person until you know what makes them tick. You can't truly understand a person until you see what makes them upset or what really gets them going. I didn't make up that quote. That was from the classic anime Hunter x Hunter, and the protagonist's aunt told him that before he went off on his journey to become the greatest hunter of all time, in which he most likely does, because that's normally how the animes go. When Naruto tells you he was going to be the greatest ninja of all time, and he repeatedly said you should believe it, did you not believe it? Of course you did, because as a man thinketh, he is. As a woman thinketh, she is. So for me, something that made me upset, something that brought me to a low point, was really how I was perceived or received in a context between. Well, okay, here's the story, because I'm beating around the bush. I used to work at the YMCA. Okay, so I used to work at the gym, and this was a few years ago. This was in a period in which I felt that I was misaligned. I mean, not I wasn't really truly going through my spiritual awakening at that time, but I felt like I wasn't where I wanted to be in life. Right, graduate of a prestigious university, had a degree in business, had experience as an executive for a Fortune 500 company, had international experience, traveled the world, came back, and I felt like, life was going up and up and up and up for me. And then I come back, I get to experience time with my family, I get to spend time with my friends, I get to link up with individuals whom I hadn't seen in a long time, and it was really great. But I wasn't getting much of a response rate from jobs, and I wasn't getting much of a response rate from young ladies, because I felt like I wasn't in the right. I felt like I didn't fit where I was. For somebody who had just come back from Tokyo and Hong Kong and Beijing to be back in Chesapeake, Virginia, which is nothing like the places that I just mentioned. I felt like, I felt like a fish out of water. But long story short, I was trying to apply for a lot of jobs. I ended up finding that me working for the YMCA was where God wanted me to be. And I didn't realize that until later, until after the fact. But whilst I was there, it was an enjoyable job. I work with the kids. I love working with kids. I dealt with health and wellness with the kids. So like, I was like a PE teacher or a PE coach or a life coach for children, and children don't necessarily need life coaches. I guess they could. They have parents, they have educators, but a life coach could be a beneficial thing. So I was like a life coach for children. Aside from that, I used to work in the gym in the morning time, so I worked split shifts at the job. And at the fitness center, there were a lot of people who I met, and life is about relationships, establishing relationships, cultivating those meaningful relationships. Thank you to what I read from Ray Dalio, and just reading, just going out into the world and having that confirmed or reaffirmed through church, through ministry, through various books that I read at the library or the Barnes and Noble, or family members, things of that nature. So There was one day, um, there was one day in which there was a very attractive young lady. I'm sorry if it's a little loud because, of course, I am in front of the library, but the library is next to the fire station, and it's very important that we have firefighters here because evidently they're going to save lives right now somewhere. But there was this really attractive lady, a young woman around my age. I would say she's my age, whatever that means, in that ballpark figure, upper 20s. And this was a few years ago. So yeah, like upper 20s, mid to upper 20s. And she came in and I was the person who opened up the fitness center, so I was there from 5 in the morning to, let's say, 9 o'clock, sometimes 10, but mostly just 5 to 9, just a quick little shift in the morning. And I thought she was fit. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. She was what you would call my type. Or she would be, I can't say my type in the sense of like I knew her socially, I didn't know her emotionally, I didn't know her psychologically, mentally, or spiritually. So somebody would be like, so maybe she's not your type. But as far as the archetype, as far as her, as far as how she looked aesthetically, she would have been definitely what I would have approached or what I would go for. So very attractive, very very beautiful, and she was in great shape. So either way, she comes in the gym, and the first time we met, she just comes in and then she works out. I don't say anything to her. The second time she comes in, she says hi, and we speak a little, chatter, nice to meet you. She introduces herself and she extends her hand. I shake her hand and just small talk. I ask her what she does and she says, I work at a gym too, which is I would say not surprising based on how she looked physically. You can tell she was very, very much in shape. I like girls like that. So it's like she was in great shape. You can tell she was in great shape. You can tell she worked out. This wasn't like, oh, I just woke up in the morning like this, or, I just happened to be like this. Like, no, like, homegirl worked at it. Homegirl had a system. And you can tell fitness and health and wellness was a part of her system of synthesis or synchronicity. So that was that. And I remember after the second day that she came in, I remember telling my homeboy who I was speaking to, I was like, yo, man, there's a shorty in here who was like that, and I know since I've been back in, Virginia, I haven't been dating, I haven't been on the scene, I haven't had much experience with, women around here. Like as an adult, like the last time I was in this area, I was a kid, I was a teenager, I grew up here. But through my, young adult life, I went off to college and, and went to New York afterwards and then so on and so forth. So being back here, I was like, damn, I would, go back in. I would go take her on a date, man. Like she's all right, Like it wasn't a lust thing. It wasn't just I just want to do something to her. I was like, I would like to get to know this young lady. She's articulate. She's well spoken. She's sharp. She seems sharp based on the small talk that we had. I can't tell you fully what she was like because I don't know, still don't. But I felt like she was all right, and I remember telling my homie, like, yeah, man, like, I think I'm gonna have to, try to work something out. I'm gonna have to see what she's about, and at that time, I wasn't in alignment, and whenever you're misaligned, for me, I had to figure out what my insecurities were. I had to figure out what my fears were, and through my writing, you could see a lot of that, or you can tell a lot of it based on my blogs that I was writing at that time, 2016, 17, 18. I was depicting a lot of my stories from overseas. And like for me some of my I guess my greatest fear at that time, I had to go into what my chaos was, what my darkness was. And my greatest fear was that, you know, I used to derive my confidence. My value was linked to how I was received by women, right? So when somebody says, Gabe, you're well-to-do, or you always seem like you're pretty confident, I mean, they would be right by that, because I was, and I am, at that time, I was very confident because I was well received in, growing up in school by my peers, and I was well received in New York, and to a point, all growing up, I was pretty well received by my peers, and I thought that was how things things worked. It's like, yeah, man, if you're a cool guy, man, don't tell me. If you're a cool guy, you don't gotta, say any shit to me, or you don't have to prove it to a group of guys. Like, if you're tough shit, man, if you're the alpha male, or you're the alpha whatever, trust and believe, we'll figure it out, because by natural selection, just like in the animal kingdom, the women will surround, and they will be attracted to whoever the leader is, whoever the boss kind of guy is, whoever the alpha male is. So it's like, for me, like, I took myself as like, hey, if you thought I was a cool person, it wasn't because I was trying to be. It was because, like, you probably thought I was cool because other women said so, or you probably thought I was cool because you saw that other women responded to me in a certain way. You probably thought, Gabe had it going because girls enjoyed being around me to a point, right? Not to say they physically liked me, not to say they loved me or anything, but maybe they just liked the energy that I exuded, and I brought people together, and because I'm, extroverted and talkative and all that type of thing, right? So at that time, particularly whenever I was in the YMCA, I wasn't dating anybody. I wasn't having sex. I was living it with my parents. I wasn't going on dates. I mean, like, when I say I wasn't having sex, I'm talking like I didn't have any sex for over a year. I mean, then it turned into 2 years. So it was like somebody's listening, like, yo, what the fuck does that mean? Like, literally no parts of any woman, no, nothing. No kissing, no nothing, no physical contact, nothing for two for 2 years. So, like, in that time, man, my confidence was like, like, it was like crash and burn. Like, you were seeing like a shell of myself. Like, I was working at the YMCA, but like, there was no fire and there was no desire. Well, there was desire, but there was no fire there, bro. There was nothing. There was no fire. So I don't know. I say all that to say, I saw this young lady, and I caught a spark. I was like, oh shit, man. Like, I haven't seen a girl like that walk into the Y, because it's mostly like family. This is mostly, beautiful women. We're definitely at the YMCA for damn sure. But like, she was the one where I felt like, oh man, like, yeah, I would. That's what I like. That's my type. That's my type. And girls can tell. Girls can tell whenever you're looking them up and down, and you're looking at them from afar, and you're trying to be, check them out from your peripheral vision, or whatever the case may be. Girls know that you're looking at them. Girls know that. But specifically, even more so, when you speak to them, girls can tell just like intuitively. Oh, like, he's really into me. Like, they can tell just by the look in your eyes. They can just tell by the tone of your voice. They can tell by non-verbal communication, like, okay, this guy just doesn't want to talk to me. He wants someone. He wants everything, right? So I don't know whether it was because, well, of course it was because of the fact that I haven't had much relationships, or I wasn't out with girls that much, or whether my confidence was so low that, it was reeking off me. She could smell it off me. And the term in the later 2000s, or in this era, we will call it thirsty, or we will call it, back in the day, we would say, yo, he's fiending. Or if you were from the UK, you would be like, he is keen. He's keen as fuck. He is gagging for it, like, keen. Like, so maybe she felt that way about maybe she felt that way about me through those small conversations. But definitely, I mean, I have to stress this. She was definitely what I liked in a girl. So I ended up calling her job, because she told me where she worked, and she worked at a fitness center. And I called the fitness center, and wanted to see what it was about, like, what do you do there, blah blah blah. And they were saying, oh yeah, we have a convention, or a conference. No, not a conference, like a clinic, this upcoming weekend. And I was saying, oh well, since I work at the YMCA, I might want to. Do you think it's possible that I can come and sit in on this clinic? It was a health and wellness clinic, and I work in health and wellness, and I'm a life coach for kids. So I was like, oh, I was trying to finesse my way, not necessarily because I wanted to hear anything about their information. Of course, I was calling because I wanted to see this young lady that worked there. And that was not that was not the move. That was not what I should have done. Either way, but I did it either way. And whenever I saw the young lady, let's say a few days later, because if this happened on a weekend, I may have saw her on a Monday or Tuesday. I told her, I didn't keep it secretive. I was like, hey, how's it going? I called your job and I heard that you had a little clinic and stuff like that, and I tried to be a part of it, but they told me that I couldn't come because it was only for members. And she was like, oh yeah, laughing, like, well, she didn't laugh, but she's like, oh yeah, it's only for members, and she worked at Orange Theory, so she's like, yeah, it's only for members and you have to pay the fee and come out to it or whatever. And then I didn't mention to her that I tried to add her on Instagram, but I did find her on Instagram because, I knew she worked at Orange Theory. There was only one or two in our area. So I found her on the picture. She had a private page, so I requested her. So she didn't approve my request. But all that happened that weekend, the calling the job and the request of the Instagram. Long story short, after I said that to her about, calling her job and trying to take part in the clinic, she responded very nonchalantly. She didn't seem skeptical or, she didn't seem startled by that or shocked. At least not. I didn't see, based on her facial expression, it seemed that startled. But she went to work out, that morning, and she did her thing. Let's say maybe 35, 45 minutes later, I'm vacuuming the floor before it's over, before my shift was over. And before she left, because I saw her get her jacket, I was like, hey, so, and I'm sitting there pausing because I didn't want to go directly like, yeah, let's get dinner, or like, let's grab a coffee, even though I literally should have, or I could have been just direct and straightforward, but the confidence was low at the time, and I'm being honest about this. I said, oh, so when do you work? Like, what times do you work? And I wanted to figure out her schedule. The look on her face when I asked that was like, right? Of course, like, for obvious reason, right? And we're going to break this down in the next video. I'm finishing up soon. But she had a look of, like, terror, like, oh, I don't know, I got to go. And that's what she, got to go. I work, here and there, got to go. Left out, turned the corner. Left out and turned the corner. And at that moment, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, maybe I should. Actually, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think anything of it. Like, I mean, I know what assertive is. I know what aggressive is. Well, evidently I don't, because it's my personality type. So I didn't think that was that aggressive. I didn't think that was that assertive. In hindsight, homegirl thought I was batshit crazy, like fucking creep, like fucking stalker, fucking not cool, asking me about my job, you calling my work, you're requesting me on Instagram. I literally have probably only said 4 sentences to you. We've had small talk, but like nothing personal, nothing about my life, nothing about anything intimate, nothing like that. And you're like asking me questions and you're trying to figure out my schedule. So she left out of there and she almost like ran out of there. Homegirl goes to my boss, and I will explain to you what she said or how that went down in the next video.